Hello guys, my name is Tiruk Parmar. I'm working as a professor. As you can see, this is some basic details about me. In this particular lecture, I'll be starting with a topic that is called as online threats. So in today's time, when we talk about malware or ransomware, so we should have clear understanding about basic things in all the manner when we are working online or if we are working at some different locations for different purposes. So at that point of time it becomes very important for each and every one of us to have a clear detail or a clear idea about all the online threats which is present in today's time or all the fraudulent activities which is happening in day-to-day life, so that we can make ourselves secure. At the same time, it is also important for our general knowledge as well. So let's start with the same. So let's start discussing cybercrime. Cybercrime is a catch-all phrases for criminal activity carried out using computers or the internet. Cybercrime can employ any number of different methods and tools such as phishing, viruses, spyware, ransomware, and social engineering, often with the goal of stealing personal information or committing frauds. Now, if we talk about a cybercrime, here I have highlighted few broad points. As you can see, cybercrime is bigger threat than even before. Now that more and more people are connected to the internet via laptop, smartphones, tablets, computers, is one of the most profitable way to make money in the cyber crime or criminal world. There are wide variety of cyber crimes which can broadly be categorized into two types. One of crimes such as installing a virus that steal your personal data, and second is ongoing crime such as cyberbullying, extortion, distributing child pornography, or organizing terrorist attacks. Now, where does cybercrime comes from? It likes other crimes is work of criminal, but it is practiced by those who have technologically skills and use the internet to achieve their nefarious ends. Cybercriminals employ their diverse skill to set to access bank accounts, steal identities, blackmail, and then they basically stalk and harass or use a compromised computer as a part of sophisticated botnet to stage distribution denial of service attacks on large institution. Botnet and denial of service attack, this both type we are going to discuss in coming part. So how one can recognize about cybercrime? Recognizing a cybercrime depends on the crime being committed. Malware basically downloaded to your computer might slow it down and prompt it to give you error messages. Phishing attack, meanwhile, usually involve receiving emails from unknown sources trying to trick you into giving up your passwords or personal data. Keylogger leave their own signs like strange icons or duplicating your messages. On the other hand, you may never suspect your computer has been enslaved to be a botnet. Now, which which steps should be taken if we are under such a situation, or what are the precautions or how to stop such crimes? Resolving cybercrime is a job for police, national cyber security departments, and commercial cyber security firms. In India, we call it cyber cells. So basically we need to report this particular type of incident at cyber cells, remember, on a personal level. However, you can put an end to cybercrime by removing the most common methods of committing these types of crimes, like malware, compromised of viruses, spyware, and ransomwares, using a powerful antivirus to scan your system and removing dangerous files. Not only keeps you safe, it keeps cybercriminal from making money, which is typically their primary motivation. And how to prevent cybercrimes? Don't download anything from unknown sources. Don't click on links embedded in emails from people you don't know. Don't ever give out your passwords or personal data. These are the main broad points through which one can protect themselves by not being the victim of a cybercrime. Next part which we are going to discuss is cracking. As you can see, cracking word itself states that practice of hacking computer system and software with malicious intent. For example, cracking a password in order to access user's account, or cracking a public Wi-Fi network in order to intercept the data passing through it. As I've mentioned few points here, while hacking is the process of bypassing computer safeguards in order to gain access to them, which can either be good or bad. Cracking specially refers to same practice but with criminal intent. Remember, here we are bypassing computer safeguards in order to gain access to them, while cracking is something which is a criminal activity. And the same way, the general opinion is that hackers build while crackers break. So hackers basically provides you security and crackers try to break that security. In particular, crackers engage in such untruly or such bad practices as stealing credit card numbers, deploying viruses, destroying files, or collecting personal data to themselves. Then when does cracking comes from, or where does it comes from? Any number of things can motivate a cracker, ranging from financial gains to further a cause or maliciousness, or for its own sake, or just because they like a challenge. As such, cracking can come from anywhere. However, cracking, unlike hacking, relies more on persistent repetition of a handful of fairly well-known tricks in order to break it into system, rather than cleverly exploiting the system's weaknesses. As a result, most crackers are in fact only subpar hackers. Now, how one can recognize whether cracking or some malicious activity happen on the system? Whether or not it's possible to recognize cracking depends on what's being cracked. For example, software companies likely won't know if someone has cracked their software. Likewise, students using the public Wi-Fi at the corner cafe won't know if someone has cracked the Wi-Fi network and is capturing their vulnerable data, such as banking info or passwords. That said, it might be obvious that your computer has been cracked if your friends and colleagues start getting phishing emails from your email address. That's the only way. Now, how one can stop this particular activity? Trying to stop cracking is like trying to stop criminal or crime itself. And if Batman can't do it, we don't have much hope of that happening anytime soon. So as long as people with criminal intent and the skills needed to crack into computer system exist, cracking will persist. The best thing you can do to help curtail cracking is to ensure that none of the systems you use get cracked in the first place. Fortunately, there are many ways you can do that, such as using a password manager to protect your login info. Now, password manager basically provided by many antivirus softwares, and we can use some other things as well. In the event your computer has been cracked, however, you can use a powerful antivirus to search for and remove any viruses or other malware that may have been installed on your computer as a part of crack. How one can prevent from cracking itself? Don't open any attachment sent from suspicious email addresses. Never send your banking info or credit card number via email. Don't use public Wi-Fi for any activities you want to keep private. That's the only way one can prevent themselves. Then, next part which we are going to discuss is DDoS, which is also called as distributed denial of service. In simple words, on a server, attacker tries to send millions or thousands and thousands of requests to just keep the server busy. As the server gets busy, the actual work or actual request which is sent by genuine client will not be able to service it, and hence the whole process of a company or an organization gets down. So that's the only way, or that's the main motive behind using distributed DOS or distributed denial of service attack. Remember, if I send more than 2000, 3000 email at the same point of time on same email ID, that considered to be denial of service attack, where I'm just trying to keep anyone's email account or anyone's machine just busy, or I'm trying to generate some artificial traffic on their network so that they cannot be able to receive any intended messages or any important known some emails or some important documents. They will not be able to receive those. Now, as per the Information Technology Act, which is basically came into picture in the year 2000, and again it is amended multiple times. So as per the Information Technology Act, sending more than 2000 emails at same point of time on same email ID, that considered to be as a crime or criminal activity, and hence one cannot send some beyond one limit. One cannot send emails at same email ID. So what we can do, basically attackers, they basically creates zombies. They basically try to attract other users as well, or they basically hack other computers and make them or convert them into zombies, and those zombies can send now emails to some particular email, or that particular zombies are going to victimize any particular machine or any particular server. So if you have ever tried to visit your favorite website and found that it's uncharacteristically slow, the connection drops, or you are unable to even reach the web page, then there's good chance that it's currently the victim of distributed denial of service attack. As I have mentioned here, DDoS, it is called as DDoS attack, try to take down websites or entire network by overwhelming them with traffic from thousands of infected computers, collectively known as Botnet. Banks, news sites, and even governmental sites are the main targets of DDoS attacks, which then make the sites unable for users. And since both the target and the computer being used in the botnet are victims, individual users became collateral damage in the attack, their PCs slowing down or crashing while working for the hacker. So why do DDoS attack exist? This type of attacks aren't usually aimed at individual users but target high profile web servers such as banks, credit card payment gateways like PayPal. In India we have RuPay, Visa, MasterCard, and government sites. Hackers reorganizing a DDoS attack can be motivated by anything ranging from financial gains, revenge, or simply a desire to troll. In an attack, the targeted websites shut down and their online service becomes unavailable to individual users, who then lose trust or patience with the organization and possibly take their business elsewhere. This results in loss of revenue as well as damage to an organization's reputation. So you can just spoil someone's reputation, you can just spoil someone's business with the help of this type of an attack. How one can recognize DDoS attack? A successful DDoS attack is easy to recognize but hard to prevent. Once it attempted on your server, it is very difficult to get rid of this type of attack. When a network is suddenly overwhelmed with persistent web traffic that lasts for days, weeks, or even for months and becomes unresponsive to the everyday users, it's very likely a DDoS attack. It's a bit harder to recognize when your PC has been enlisted into a botnet. However, if it is suddenly starts acting slow, displaying error messages or crashing at random, there's a good chance it's currently in a botnet. Now, how one can prevent DDoS attack? Protecting against DDoS attack is impossible for everyday users, as only the admin of the website can know of sudden, unexpected spikes in traffic and take action to counter this. Individuals can do their part by having a powerful antivirus installed that can catch and remove the malware that enslaves a PC into a botnet, so that their own computers won't slow down, crash, or be used to attack others. Now, how to avoid being a botnet? So be sure to protect your computer with a strong antivirus. Don't download unknown softwares to your computer that might harbor a virus. Be on the lookout if your PC starts acting strangely or slowing down. This is the only way one can protect themselves. from this type of an attack. Now, next part which we are going to discuss is related to this DDoS attack only, which is called as botnet. So as you can see, we are going to talk about a botnet here. So what we mean by a botnet, as you can see, a botnet is a network of computers that have been infected with malicious software so they can be controlled remotely, forcing them to send out spam on some other computers, spread viruses, or stage DDoS attacks without the knowledge or consent of computer's real owner. So basically, botnet converts your computer into zombie. Exactly what we basically see in Hollywood movies or in movies. The zombies work. What they do, they work for one certain consistent, they basically work for some consistent thing only. So your computer also starts working on one persistent thing only, which is basically defined by an attacker. A botnet is a bot network, as you can see here, also also known as zombie army. Is a network made up of a large number of computers that have been hijacked by malware to serve the whims of the hacker who unleashed it by taking control of hundreds or thousands of computers. Botnets are typically used to send out spam or viruses, steal personal data, or to stage DDoS attacks. They are considered one of the biggest online threats in today's time. Where do botnets come from? For your computer to be part of botnet, it first needs to become infected with a type of malware that either contacts a remote server or other infected computers in a network in order to get instructions from whoever is controlling the botnet, which is typically hackers and criminals. Despite being grander in scope and scale, however, a botnet malware infection is no different from typical malware infection. Now, how one can recognize about a botnets? If you recognize, you can recognize computer infected with a botnet in the same way as you can identify a computer infected with other types of malwares. Signs include the computer is running slow, acting strangely, giving error messages, or the fan starting up suddenly when computer is idle. These are all possible symptoms of someone using your computer remotely as part of a botnet network. Now, how we can remove a PC from botnet? To remove a PC from botnet network, we need to remove the malicious software that's controlling it. The best way to do this is to run an antivirus scan of your computer, which should locate the botnet malware, then remove it for you. An easy solution to a dire problem. Now, ways to prevent botnet malware. Install trusted, powerful antivirus software on your computer. Set your software settings to update automatically. Be careful what you click, download, or what you open. That's the only way one can prevent themselves from this type of an attack. Now, next part which we are going to discuss is cyberbullying. As you can see, that means bullying someone using a cyberspace or using internet. That's what we mean by cyberbullying. So cyberbullying refers to someone using electronic communication, particularly social media messaging, post and chats, but also email and text messages, to bully someone else, usually by using intimidating or threatening language. Every year, new and heartbreaking cyberbullying stories make the news. That's the very sad story. So what as you can see here, I have listed out few points. Cyberbullying might be the most dangerous, one of the most dangerous type of attack, you can say, which basically not harming computers, but it basically harms emotion of many of the people. It threats them. It basically gives them psychological attacks. That is the most shameful thing in today's time. And most of the victims of this type of attack are women. Basically, many people try to threat them, or many people try to bully them online. So that's the most shameful thing in today's time. So as you can see here, The cyberbullying usually involves sending the victims threatening messages or posting humiliating photos or videos of the victim on social media sites like MMS, or putting their photos or some personal type of photos on pornographic websites, or even creating a website about the victim. As has often been documented in the news, the effects of cyberbullying can be devastating and even fatal. Sometimes many women's or many girls attempted suicides because of such type of cyberbullying. Where does cyberbullying come from? It comes from the same dark and demented place as real world bullying. People who want to exert some form of power and elevate their own social status by humiliating others, especially if they think the other person is weaker or somehow threatening. Cyberbullies may post some very unwanted information, hide behind online identities, or even use their real identities in the knowledge that they won't be physically confronted by the victims. Many cyberbully will say or post things online that they would never have the courage to say in real life. How one can recognize cyberbullying? Any hurtful, demeaning or threatening message sent over an electronic medium is cyberbullying. It also includes humiliating photo or video posted on public sites such as Facebook or YouTube without consent of that particular XYZ person. Fake profile or websites that aim to expose or invade privacy can also be considered cyberbullying. While the tools and tricks involved in cyberbullying can seem obvious, the most difficult part in combating cyberbullying can be getting ashamed and or frightening victims to admit they are being targeted. How can we stop such thing? Unfortunately, as long as there are some very evil peoples, it seems unlikely will ever be able to put a complete stop to cyberbullying. It can also be difficult to stop the cyberbullies create the post websites or videos that attack the target, as it can require going through a lengthy, difficult process to get admins to delete that content. And by that point, oftentimes, copies have been made and distributed, which means it's nearly impossible to delete this content for good. So if someone have posted some person's MMS online, and after 3 or 4 days, if we are able to find out that particular website where that XYZ person uploaded that MMS, and if we put that MMS down from that site, but from that point of time it have already created or it is already sprayed on multiple web pages, so it gets very difficult to get those content down from internet. So how can we help prevent cyberbullying? Block the accounts cyberbullies use to spread their hate. Report cyberbullies to the service providers like Facebook or Twitter. Protect all your passwords and password protect your phone. That's the only way. And the same way, there are not just cyberbully, there are many people who use cyberspace to spread their evil messages or thinkings, like terrorists, ISIS. They are using this social media platform just to encourage more and more people to join them. So in today's time, you can see cyber is a space which gives us endless knowledge. At the same time, it's very dangerous platform as well, which can hurt someone, which can kill someone, or which can also help someone to get the better life. So how we can use, how to protect ourselves is up to us. The next type is, you can see, these are sniffers. So what do you mean by sniffers? Sniffer come in a number of forms. There are packet sniffer, Wi-Fi sniffers. Sniffer, it's like a dog. Dog used to sniff. The same way, using the sniffers, we can sniff or we can detect someone's Wi-Fi. We can detect someone's data which is flowing through that particular network or that particular Wi-Fi, or data which is flowing within the network. We can sniff those data as well. And IP sniffer among others. So we can sniff others' IP address as well. But they all have one thing in common. A sniffer is a type of software that grabs all the traffic flowing into and out of a computer that's connected to a network. As I have listed down points here, a sniffer isn't necessarily malicious. In fact, this software is commonly used to monitor and analyze network traffic in order to detect problems and keep things flowing efficiently. They can basically monitor each and every packet or each and every message we are sending over that particular network. They are sniffers. They can trace those packets. They can, if those packets are not in an encrypted format, one can read those packets as well. So basically, when we are using WhatsApp, they basically provides us encryption facility, so that if any person tries to sniff our packets, or if any person tries to check the data which we are sending over that particular Wi-Fi over a network, so one cannot easily read those packets. Why? Because it is already in an encrypted format, which is in a non-readable format. But a sniffer can also be used for ill intent. Sniffer tracks everything goes through them, including unencrypted passwords. As you can see, unencrypted. If it is in an encrypted format, they can sniff those packets or data, but they will not be able to read it or interpret it. So hackers who can access a sniffer can access any account that go through them. Additionally, a sniffer can be installed on any computer connected to local network without needing to be installed on the device itself. In other words, it can go undetected for the duration of connections. So where do sniffer come from? Hackers use sniffers to steal data, spy on network activity, and collect information on users. Usually, the end goal is to obtain password and account information for banking and shopping sites. Typically, hackers place sniffers in place that offers unsecured Wi-Fi connections, such as those found at coffee shops, hotels, and airports. Sniffers are also used to impersonate other devices on the network in what's known as spoofing attack in order to steal sensitive information. Spoof, remember, spoof means we are basically going to use that person's IP address. How do we recognize a sniffer? Unauthorized sniffer can be virtually impossible to detect. How can we detect that someone is monitoring our traffic or messages? It is totally impossible. And I mean, it is next to impossible. It can be inserted almost anywhere, making them extremely dangerous to a network security. Basic user will likely never know if the sniffer is spying on their network data. Remember, this is passive attack. They are not actually modifying your data. They are just sniffing your data. If they are modifying your data, then there might be chances that you'll get to know about this particular changes. But if they are only monitoring, then it is very difficult. In theory, run your own sniffer and monitor DNS traffic to find other sniffers. But for a standard user, it's much simpler to run anti-sniffer software. That's the only way to catch any intruders, or to use an internet security program that will hide your browsing activity. Now, how we can remove a sniffer? You can use a powerful antivirus to find and remove any malware associated with a sniffer that's been installed on your computer. But to completely purge a sniffer from your computer, you will need to delete the files and folders associated with it. To remove a sniffer that's been superstitiously installed on your network, on the other hand, you will want use internet security software that includes a network scanner, which will search for any issue on your network and instruct you on how to deal with them. Now, how one can prevent from this particular type of a sniffer? Encrypt everything you send and receive. Scan your network for any issues or dangers. Use only trusted Wi-Fi network. That's the only way we can protect ourselves. Next particular part, as you can see, which we are going to discuss, is called as cross-site scripting. Now, what we mean by this cross-site scripting, also known as XSS attacks. So, is a type of website vulnerability that lets attacker place malicious script into others' trustworthy web pages and apps that then install malware onto users' web browser. Using cross-site scripting, hackers don't directly target or misdirect users, but rather freely disseminate their malware to countless people. So whoever tries to visit on their website all gets all basically all becomes the victim of this type of an attack. As I have listed down few points here, this type of attack targets the code, otherwise known as the script, in a web page that is executed in user's browser rather than on the website's server. When you are attacked, your browser is injected with malicious script that will try to harm your computer. There is almost limitless variety of this type of attack, but most try to harvest personal data, redirect victims to websites controlled by hacker, or make your PC perform operation on behalf of hacker. How does this type of attacks happens? Websites store data and send information to your browser all the time. This type of attack happens when untrusted sources sends users malicious content via vulnerabilities in the websites to your browsers that will then go on to steal your data or harm your PC. For example, when a user searches for something online, the website will then send information to browser in form of search result. In this type of an attack, in a cross scripting attack, the information they send back can contain malware that might steal your data. Because nearly every website requires storing and sending data to browsers, this XSS attack is the most commonly security vulnerability in softwares today. Now, how one can recognize such type of an attack? Unfortunately, your browser has no way of knowing if a script should not be trusted and will automatically execute any script it receives. This means that malicious script can access any sensitive information that the browser has stored or has saved on the web page. This makes this type of attack pretty much impossible to recognize. Now, how can you remove such vulnerabilities? It's the job of owner of a website to find and remove such vulnerabilities, since that's where the malicious code lurks, infecting many visitors. Asking people to protect themselves by avoiding suspicious websites doesn't work in this case, as this vulnerability affects all websites, trusted and untrusted ones alike. Fortunately, there are tools online you can download to scan websites to check for this type of vulnerabilities. Now, how one can prevent cross-scripting this type of an attack? Install top-rated antivirus on your computer. Set your software setting to up-to-date automatically. Download a scanner that can check for vulnerability in a website's code. That's the only way we can protect ourselves. I hope this particular part is clear. The next part which we are going to discuss, as you can see, which is called as 0 day. Now, what we mean by this particular type, that is a 0 day. When a software vendor releases a new product with a security issue that neither the vendor nor the antivirus company knows about it, it's called a 0 day vulnerability or 0 day exploit. Means there is a new software with some loopholes or with some backdoors present in that particular software. The 0 day refers to how long the good guy have known about a security problem in a software. There are two kinds of 0 days. One is a 0 day vulnerability is a hole in the software security. Remember, it's a backdoor, or you can say a security loophole, can be present on a browser or on an application. Now, second is 0 day exploit. On the other hand, is a digital attack that takes advantage of 0 day vulnerability in order to install malicious software on a device. Now, where do this 0 day comes from? Since by definition a 0 day vulnerability is still unknown to software designers, antivirus vendors and public at large, 0 day attack come from criminal hackers who have discovered or otherwise learn about a hole in the system and quietly exploit it. So they basically finds the weak chain or a weak part of any particular software, or tries to find the backdoor in that particular software. So it is in particularly zero-day attacks usually take advantage of holes in web browser and email applications, since both are widely distributed. How do you recognize zero-day exploits? The bad news is it's impossible to recognize either zero-day vulnerability or zero-day exploits. If you found out them, they wouldn't be zero-day anymore. Because of this, zero-day attacks are a severe threats, but you are not without recursor. For example, some antiviruses are able to detect a zero-day using behavior tracking algorithm. Remember, behavior tracking algorithm. Antiviruses uses behavior tracking algorithm that spot suspicious or malicious behavior. Now, how do you fix a zero-day vulnerability? Fixing a zero-day vulnerability is generally the job of the software provider, who will need to release a security patch to basically to rectify the hole in its software. However, it's up to individual user to actually install the security patch or software update onto their device. The easiest way to ensure you never forget to update your software is to get an application that can automatically manage your software patches. Now, some of the prevention tips, how we can take some precautions, we can say. Always check for and install the latest software patches. Practice safe browsing habits to reduce the danger of malware taking advantage of zero-day vulnerability. Install an app that automatically updates your essential software, such as any antivirus which we are using for this particular purpose. Next particular type which we are going to use, which we are going to discuss, is exploits. As the name suggests, exploits means exploiting someone. An exploit is any unethical or illegal attack that takes advantage of vulnerability in applications, network, or hardware. The attack usually takes the form of software or code with the aim of gaining control of a computer system or stealing data stored on a network. As I have mentioned few points here, a software and a network come with built-in protection against such type of hackers, sort of like logs that keep unwanted guests from sneaking inside. A vulnerability then is like an open window that a thief can climb through. In case of computer or a network, this type of thieves can install malicious software through this vulnerability or open windows. These are what we call backdoors of our systems, in order to control or infect the system for their own some nefarious purposes. Usually this happens without users' knowledge. So where do exploits come from? Exploits are ultimately errors in the software development process that leave holes in the software's built-in security that cyber criminals can then use to access the software and, by extension, your entire computer. Exploits are commonly classified according to type of vulnerability they exploit, such as zero-day or DOS, that is denial of service, spoofing, and cross-scripting attacks. Software providers will of course issue security patches for all such vulnerability they come to know about, but until they do, the software could be at risk. Now, how do you recognize this exploits? Since exploits take advantage of security holes in a software, a user has no way of knowing if they have been affected until it's too late. That's why it's important to always update your software and in particular install security patches released by your software developers. If the developer has released a patch for a known vulnerability and the user fails to install it, then unfortunately the user will not receive a necessary virus definition. Now, how do you fix exploits? Since most exploits are the result of failure by the developer, removing an exploit is their responsibility, and they will be the one who develops and distributes a fix. However, it's impossible on users to keep all their software up to date and install those fixes so no hacker get a chance to exploit the vulnerability. One way to make sure you never miss an update and all your software is up to date is to use an application manager that makes it easy for you to keep your software safe, or better yet, have one that does it for you automatically. Now, how to prevent hacker from using exploits? Be sure to install all software patches and security release. Stay safe online and stay up to date with on latest news. Installing all updates for your software right away. Install a premium antivirus that automatically updates all your softwares. That's what we can do. Then next particular type is called as SQL injection. Now, what we mean by this? Its injection refers to an attack on a website or a web application where structured query language, a query or a question in a programming way, we can say, is added to an input box in a web form in order to gain access to an account or change the data itself. For example, on every website we have got a login option where we need to write our username and password. So instead of writing a genuine username and password, one writes an SQL query, a programming statement on those text boxes, and those programming statements basically helps them to fetch all the data which is present on database server. That's what we mean by SQL injection. Means instead of writing username and password in a login, this is just one example. So instead of writing username and password, we need to write SQL or one statements, SQL queries in those text box, and that is how we can actually find out whether those websites are SQL injection protected or they are still vulnerable for such type of attack. And if those websites are vulnerable for such type of attack, one can easily get the access of databases. And if one can get the access of databases, that means all the users and all the data, whatever present on those databases, it is already available to that hacker. So an SQL query is a request for some action to be performed on a database, most commonly on a web page that asks for username or password. But since most websites don't monitor inputs other than username and password, a hacker can use input boxes to send their own request, that is SQL injection, into a database. This way, hackers can create, read, update, alter or delete data stored in a backend database, usually to access sensitive information such as social security number, like in India we call it Aadhaar number, credit card detail, as well as some financial information. Now, our SQL injections are very common. Since a SQL injection attack can affect any website or web app that uses an SQL based database, it's one of the oldest, most prevalent and most dangerous form of cyber attack out there. Even more troubling, SQL injections are on the rise now that there are automated SQL injection programs, meaning hackers can attack and steal more now than ever before. Now, how do we recognize about SQL injection? Unfortunately, if an attacker has an talent, it's impossible to detect an SQL injection attack until your data has been made available to the public and or the theft has already happened. This is especially true for most users who have no way of knowing if the database they are signing into has been compromised. Now, can we remove SQL injection? That's one question. Since an SQL injection attacks affects websites rather than users' computer or devices, removing an SQL injection is the responsibility of website or web app. For the individual, the only safeguard is to be attentive to the news and be on the lookout if a company has announced that their security has been compromised, so they can quickly change their login information before their accounts can be hacked. So what can you do or what can we do? Unfortunately, preventing SQL injection is the responsibility of website or web app owner only. However, since this is such a well-known threat, most websites and apps have already taken steps to protect their users. So it's in your best interest to simply browse safely. As always, keep your PC secure with powerful some type of an antivirus. Now, here we are done with almost all of the type. The next type which we are going to discuss, that is called as spoofing. Now, what we mean by spoofing is, you can see This type of attack is referred to when a hacker impersonate another device or user on a network in order to steal data, spread malware, or bypass access control. The most common form of spoofing are IP spoofing, email spoofing. IP spoofing means using some other person's IP address and sending data using that particular IP address to some other person. So it's same like I'm using some second person's mobile number and I'm calling on behalf of that number to some third person. Then same way email spoofing, where I'm going to use someone's identity and send an email to some third person. And DNS spoofing. DNS means domain names, website's name. So one can spoof those domain names as well. Now, as you can see, just like real world criminals, and there are many con artists. Con means basically they are mimic. They try to mimic on behalf of some other actors. Online thieves can use impersonation as a mean of steal important information or get access to bank accounts. This practice is called spoofing, an umbrella term that includes IP address spoofing, that is sending message to a computer using an IP address that makes it look as if the message is coming from a trusted source. So I'm using some other person's IP address to communicate with some third person. Email spoofing, that is forging an email header to make it looks like it comes from somewhere or someone other than actual source. And DNS spoofing, modifying the domain name server in order to reroute a specific domain names to a different IP address. So basically whoever tries to access, suppose xyz.com, I have redirected them to some malicious website where I have already loaded some few of the most antivirus software, some malicious softwares there, which can harm their computer. Now, how does spoofing work? Spoofing is a type of technologically impersonation that seeks to fool either a network or a human into believing that the source of some information is trustworthy when it's anything but. Hacker, for example, might email spoof you by sending you emails disguised as coming from someone you trust as a way to get you to hand over sensitive data. Or they might try IP spoofing and DNS spoofing to trick you network itself into leading you to fraudulent sites that will infect your computer. Now, how we can recognize about this type of a spoofing attack? Email spoofing is the easiest to recognize as it targets users directly. Any strange email that requests sensitive information could be a spoof, especially if it asks for username and password. Remember, legitimate sites will never ask for this type of information. You can also check the email address to make sure it's from a legitimate account. However, you may never know if you are the victim of IP or DNS spoofing. Although keeping keen eye out for small changes or usual behavior could clue you in. When in doubt, it's better to play it safe to keep from making any disastrous mistake. Can we remove spoof? Yes, since spoofing is a type of impersonation, it's not really something you can remove. Instead, you can protect yourself by using a little bit of a common sense and discretion when browsing or answering email, even if you think they are trustworthy. Now, how to prevent from spoofing? Don't rely to any email asking for account detail or login info. Double check the sender's address for any suspicious email. Pay attention if any of your trusted website look or start acting differently. That's the only way we can protect ourselves. And the last part for this online threats are farming. As you can see, this is something which is not obvious or it is not known to many people. So that's why it is very compulsory in today's time to get the details very clear about all these things. So if you have ever logged into your bank page only to find your login info has been compromised and your money stolen, then you unfortunately have been a victim of farming. Now, farming disguise fake data grabbing websites. It's a data grabbing websites as legitimate trusted ones. As you can see, what is farming? It's a fraudulent practice similar to phishing, except With farming, a legitimate website's traffic is manipulated to direct users to fake look-alike that will either install malicious software on visitors' computer or farm basically harvest or farm users' personal data such as passwords or financial detail. Farming is particularly uh, very insidious because if a DNS server is compromised, even users with fully protected malware-free devices can become victim of the same. For example, uh, it's a very old news, but there is one attack happened where attackers created one web page like we have ICICIbank.com. So they have created two web pages, one with the domain name ICIC.com and second with the domain name ICICII.com. So most of time we are not that much alert while logging into such websites, just to make sure that we are logging into a genuine domain name. And most of people, without recognizing the actual domain, they basically landed over this two fraudulent login pages of which is created same like ICICI Bank. They have entered their username passwords there and they got the message that server is down, try after some time. So here their user or login details are stolen, and just within few movements only their accounts were nil. So all the money is transferred to some another account and they lost everything. So it is very important for each and every one of us to make ourselves alert while we are dealing with such type of things. So what kind of farming are there? Farming takes two forms. In the first form, hacker use any number of different methods to install virus or other malware onto your computer. This virus then makes your computer direct you away from the site you want to visit, such as banking or e-commerce sites, and instead takes you to a fake website that's been designed to look exactly like the site you thought you were going to. The second form of farming, though, is what makes this type of cybercrime particularly dangerous. In this form, a cybercriminal poisons an entire DNS server, redirecting every user who tries to visit a legitimate site to a fake one. Now, how do we recognize this type of a farming? If hackers do their job well, it's nearly impossible to recognize a fake data stealing sites. But there are still a few things you can be on the lookout for. For example, always check the URL of the site to make sure it's spelled correctly. Second, make sure that the URL has been changed to HTTPS. The S stands for secure, meaning the website is safe. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Now, how do you stop a farming sites? For the most part, it's your ISP, that is Internet Service Provider, who fight against farming sites by filtering out fake redirects and closing down fraudulent sites. But there are still measures you can take to stop farming, and most important one is to install a powerful antivirus that can find and remove any malware on your computer that will direct you to malicious sites. Other way to prevent farming is to check the URL on sites you visit to make sure they are correct. Use a trustworthy ISP, that is Internet Service Provider, and be smart about the websites you visit. Use security softwares to ensure the sites you visit are trustworthy. I hope all these points are clear. In video description section, you will find a link from where you can just download this particular mind map, so you can refer it for future as well. If you have any doubt or query regarding any particular type, feel free to ping me. Mention the same query in a comment section. Your queries are always welcome. Here I'm done with this particular part. In next lecture, I'll come up with more technical aspects. Thank you and bye bye.